welcome everybody on YouTube who's with us on TikTok. We're still out. We're not allowed to come back on because they said that we were selling drugs and stuff on live, and we were selling things illegally, and we were messing with people's money, and we were making fun of people because of their things. And TikTok went ahead, even though they plenty of times have said we haven't done this, and now all of a sudden they went ahead and said that we were doing this on a regular basis. So it is what it is. But we're back, and I'm thankful and grateful to be back in front of you with you guys again. So thank you for spending some time with us on this evening. Getting ready to get the podcast on. We're going to talk about something real specific. One second. Okay, all right. Okay, so here we go. Sorry about that. All right, so we're going to get ready to get started. I'm sorry. It's interesting. When it rains, it pours. Looks like people are very frustrated. I don't know. But we're going to talk about black on black crime real quick. And I'm not going to talk about the stereotypical one that's, kind of garbage that basically says, well, black people kill people and hurt people and nobody else does it or something, or that's the main thing, because if we could fix that, then we would fix all the black community's problems, because if that's the case, well, then we need to fix white on white crime and all that stuff. I'm not here to talk about that. All right. What I'm here to talk about when I say black on black crime is the interesting thing that keeps popping up and that continues to happen with our diaspora is that we have a lot of people who it looks like have decided that they need, for whatever reason, bash their own people. Right? A lot of people who seem like the way to go is to bash their own people. Men seem to be bashing, black men seem to be bashing black women seem to be bashing black men. It doesn't seem to really be where we're going to find a place to end this at any time. And so that's kind of what we're dealing in now. And we're trying to figure, and just want to talk about it because really, if we were, it's Willie Lynch syndrome. It really comes down to Willie Lynch syndrome, the same stuff we've been dealing with. It's Willie Lynch syndrome as far as this is, what we're going through. This is what we're determining. This is what we're, this is what we as a people are allowing to still happen to us. Remember that in the Willie Lynch letter, and whether you believe, some people don't even believe it to be real, that's on you. I don't think that that's something you should look towards, but whether you believe it to be real or not, we know that it's real thing based, even if it's not real, we know these things actually happened that are written in the letter. And I think people need to come to this place to recognize that people were tricked into believing a lot of different things, including that black men should not be in position, right, as protectors and as providers and as people who give security, and that black women are not supposed to be in position of being divine and being people who would lift up black men. And every time, Shalom Shante, every time that we see this happen and that we go through this and that we see people saying negative things about our own, what we're doing is just basically falling into the same trap. Why is it that, if you can have family or somebody who should be husband and wife, saying that the other person is of no value. Literally, even with those of you who know maybe T. Nathan or know about his story, his struggle recently, a friend of mine who went through some stuff and was locked up by black women who didn't like the fact. But he got in a fight with the black women, so it's like black women fighting. They put him in jail, and then now his comeback, his response, which I can't blame him too much if you're gonna put him in jail, was to buy their company and basically kick them out of everything and start actually helping people through the companies they said they would help people with it. But it gets to a place to where if we're not careful, I'm not saying with him or anybody in particular, but I'm just giving the warning. It gets to a place really of pettiness, right? It gets to a place to where we are in a position that shows us and states to us and gives to us a place where we're more concerned about fighting than actually causing a change. And that's really what has become the dilemma. Is we're more about fighting and arguing than we are about causing a change. The change is not going to come by saying whose fault it is. If that was the case, change would have came a long time ago, because black men been blaming black women for a long time, and black women been blaming black men for a long time. If that was going to cause the things to change, things would have changed a long time ago. So it's not about who's better than the other person. It's not about whose fault it is. At this point, it's about what are you going to do to cause change? What is it that black men should do to help black women? What is it that black women should do to help black men? What is it that black people should do to help black people? What is it that we as a people should do to make sure that we as a community can look another community in the eye? Because if we have to keep saying, if like no other community says that they can't come together because it's the white man's fault or the white woman's fault. Feminism does that to a certain extent, and now this weird thing of whatever they're calling male version of feminism is kind of does the same thing, or masculinism or whatever they're calling it. But at the end of the day, feminism or not, LGBTQ plus or not, white people are not coming out and having problem with gentrification, with colonization, with United States corporative mindset. They have no problem with that, right? We are having issues with those things. And we're so busy talking about leaving the community and enacting like you're going to be accepted, right? And people have this weird thing. So you see these weird things happen where I'm going to go and I'm going to marry somebody else and I'm going to do this because they're better, right? And you hear all this stuff. Well, white women, they submit and they listen or whatever. But these are the same white women that call the police on you. They call the police on you. What do the police do when they show up? Well, white men, they do better and they listen and blah, blah, whatever. These are the same white men that we get a story and they choking you out and saying they want to role play and they want you to be tied up or whatever, right? All the time. Like what is, or, the NFL player that everybody's covered up. Nobody's talked about since the beginning of the year, but don't forget that it was an NFL player. Was it this year or last year? I can't even remember. I can't even keep up. Maybe it was last year where there was an NFL player who at the beginning of the season, or in the off season, one of the two, chokes out a black woman, beat her to death, thought she was dead, and that's the only reason why she survived. And when she started moving again and started trying to get away from him, he said, "Oh, I thought you were dead." Right? Yet we're so busy talking about we want to be accepted by a community when we're not even looked. We're not even looked at as somebody acceptable. Right? And if any place where respect is going to start, it's got to start with your own. Right? If anywhere I should be, see, it's always amazing to me that people see this hairstyle, right? And black people will be some of the first people to try and attack you. Oh, make sure you come here, make sure, like I'll meet somebody, they'll be talking to me or whatever. Hey, I got a haircut place. I got a barbershop. Make sure you come to my chair. I don't need to come to your chair. If I should be uplifted anywhere for being myself, it should be my own community. Why is it that I'm not uplifted in my own? That's the problem. Blaming each other and doing the black on black violence against each other through our mouths. The kingdom of heaven suffered violence, the violent are taking it by force. We're so busy blaming white people for stuff. White people don't have to do as much because we're busy telling each other why what we do isn't correct. And thank you for the agreement. Yeah, I see that the sign of the truth, right? Like why? Like the real white people, the people who have the power. They don't have to work that hard to do things because we do it for them. We do the dirty work. We do the hard work. So we're busy saying why black women this and that. Matter of fact, we're busy saying, man, black women are so busy talking about how strong they are, right? And therefore, as being so strong, I'm strong. I don't need a man. Okay, well, you don't need a man. Well, what woman out there is telling, what Chinese woman, what Japanese woman have you heard talking about, I don't need a man? Like, what culture where they do that at besides ours? And who taught you to be the only culture that does that? What African nation do you know where they're teaching, where they coming out talking about we don't need no men and women? Now some of them that are trying to follow our lead because of hip hop and stuff are kind of sort of saying that. But what nation where they do that, where they're like, we don't need men and women to come together and be united? That's what the Ankh is. Yeah, we imprison each other in our mind, and nobody else does that. Where do they do that at? And here's the crazy part: you love your son, but you won't love another man. Oh, my son, he's different, blah blah. But then you raise him basically to be like a woman because he starts saying, well, if my mother doesn't respect any other man for being a man, but she respects me, well then shoot, I'm gonna be feminine. I'm gonna have some feminine traits, some feminine qualities. I'm not talking about LGBTQ plus stuff. I'm talking about stuff it's because femininity is more rewarded in the black community than masculinity is. I can tell you that when I've worked jobs before. You work jobs and you be around black women, but black men that are masculine, people really don't get down with you like that, right? But be a black man that has some feminine qualities. Be a black man that is homosexual, or the term we use that people say it means homosexual or whatever, right? And we, all of a sudden he gets mad respect, right? But you're out here doing regular stuff, doing stuff, treating women with respect, doing all that stuff. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to be part of that. You said, or teach the son not to respect women he date later in life. Yeah. Telling your son he's a man of the house, but you don't respect men. Why would I even want to be the man of the house? You don't need a man, but I'm the man of the house. I got cognitive dissonance. I'm being raised weird. But also we do it with sisters. Be strong, girl. I want a strong black woman. Well, I mean, yeah, I like the fact that you're strong, so to speak, but if you always need to be strong, when do I get to be strong for you? Right? Just a question. Right? I like to ask questions sometimes. You said it's gotten so bad, rather than working on the issue, they would rather put hands on you. Yeah? You said it's to break the family structure. I think, well, that's the goal. Once again, what did the Willie Lynch letter say? What did the Willie Lynch speech say? It said that if we can reverse the nature, if we can teach the woman to be in position of the man and the man to be in position of the woman, both will still be submissive to us. And so people go for that. People just are in the same system, employing the same thing, teaching your children now that it's all right to do the same thing. The family structure, yeah, I see you on there on the podcast. The family structure is always, Peter, it's always the most important thing. The family is the community. The community is what's going to teach. It's going to be that inspires the community. That's why they'd rather have you in schools outside of your house. Black man and black woman, you'll both send your children to schools outside your house. And let me give you an example of how crazy this is. I'm going to show you how they do it in church, and I'm going to show you how wild it is. In church, what they do is, let's say somebody wants to be a minister, or somebody wants to become ordained or something like that. You know what they do? They send them to school. They say, go to somebody else's school. And then they say, I want you to go through catechism with somebody else. Go to another preacher somewhere else and pay them. And do that, right? They send them somewhere else. And then all of a sudden that person comes back with weird theology. But you don't check their theology because you're just like, oh, you got a degree, so you must be good to go. And then this person starts doing wild and weird stuff and doesn't do anything that actually helps his culture. Matter of fact, he's gone to school that told him his culture is whack. So now, he or she is in a position where they're supposed to be over their own people, but they don't believe that what their people do is something that they should be a part of, or they don't believe in really uplifting their people. They think their people should act more like who they went to school with. So now, you've got this weird thing going on where you're supposed to have this leader, but you didn't train him. You allowed somebody else to train him. And we do that quite often. Thank you, Just Floyd. Right, we do that quite often. We send everybody else somewhere else. We send them to somebody else. You send them to school. You send your child to school. You were sent to school by your parents. Can't even remember 90% of the stuff that you learned in school. Don't remember friends that you had and stuff like that. Don't remember what parties you had and all the stuff that they told you was going to be important. You know why? Because it didn't matter. It wasn't part of your culture, and it's not helping you now. The Pythagorean theorem, you haven't used it one time. Right? Some of us. Some of you have. Right? But for the most part, none of us are out here using the Pythagorean theorem. Right? A lot of you aren't. A lot of you can't tell me. A lot of y'all might not even know. They had little weird quirks and stuff. Taught you how to square dance. You don't even know how to square dance anymore. You don't remember that, right? You had all this stuff people were teaching you from other cultures, right? You remember recess. You remember going outside. Maybe you remember some stuff from science. They threw a lot of stuff in you, but their whole goal was to train you into believing that you just need to believe whatever they told you. Right, and they taught you culture. That's what's being introduced to you more than anything else is culture. Right, teaching things that don't even help in life. Hey, how you doing, some random guy? We're back over here while they have a shutdown on the other page for a second. But nice to see you again. Hope you've been doing well. But this is the real this is real deal. This is the real deal. This is what we're really going with. A lot of people who are dealing with are people who are frustrated. Because you've been taught something different your whole life. Think about that. Your whole life. Like, how many of us, when we say you're finally becoming awake, it's because you didn't know this stuff. Nobody taught you. Nobody taught you something as simple as chemistry, is where chemistry came from. You can't study chemistry without studying chemet. Nobody told you that before you get married, you should be a husband or a wife. If you're not a husband or a wife pre-marriage, then how are you going to be qualified to be in a marriage? Peter said I'm not listening to public forum. 2, because I'm not educated yet. I've worked every day since 14. I find myself more grounded than the scholars. Yeah. Well, watch this. Like, even in that, how many people, like, this is stuff that really we should start talking about when we talk about black men and black women. We should be accountable. How many of us as black men were taught? And how many of us are going through now to make sure we are taught and are teaching the next generation of black men? How many of us were taught to invest? When you were going through school and all that, how many of them they said, hey, black people, one of the best ways you're going to be able to get out of this is start investing now. If you start investing now, you'll have money later. How many people told us that? Yeah, history is becomes propaganda too. Think about that. How many people, right? Why? Like, think about this. Black men, what's your number one gig when you're in a marriage? Number one gig, take care of securing your wife. Your wife should feel secure. Well, if you don't own anything where your wife can feel secure, and then guess what? She will not feel secure. Like, you can try to make her feel secure all you want, but if you're in an apartment complex, somebody can throw you out at any time. How are you securing her? Yeah. Some of us in our 50s, 60s, 70s, some of us 100 years old, never thought to invest. Never thought, like when cryptocurrency came out, people were so at it, and they told everybody, especially black people, don't get in cryptocurrency. But cryptocurrency is one of the greatest things you can do. You know why? Because cryptocurrency is one of the few things out there that doesn't care what color you are. All it is numbers in the system. If you pay this much, you will get this much return. Like, one of the greatest doors to be able to get you out. But your community has had people try to, on purpose, turn them away from it. Right? Black woman, your man's biggest thing is to feel heard, right? But if you're not in a position where you have you've made things to where he can be heard in, watch this, as a black man. And this is where they try to trip you up. Why it got to be for a black man? Why can't it be for all men? All men deal with, yeah, sure, all men want to be heard, but one in your house is significant because you're not married to all men or trying to marry all men. You're not raising all men. You're raising black men. You're with a black man. And so in your household, in your community, in what you do, what is there specifically to help the black man? Yeah, a lot of us are. Had I just started investing in cryptocurrency in 2014, be a millionaire by now. Easily. Like, that's how easy it could have been. That's why, like, we're late to the party, but that's why we're telling people cryptocurrency, because it's still coming. There's so many of them now, right? There's getting diluted some, but there's still a few core ones that you should make sure that you're a part of, right? Ethereum, Bitcoin, what's the one that's based off a video game that one's escaping me right now? there's Dogecoin as well, but that's not the one I'm looking for. For whatever reason, it's not in the front of my mind. But, there's a lot of them. Like, you want to make sure you're in these things. What'd you say, man? Oh, yeah, Tron. Yeah, Tron. That's the one I'm thinking of, right? We're invested in that. Like, and Tron is one to where it hasn't really blown up yet. What if when it blows up like the other ones do? If you've got $50 worth of Tron and it's only worth pennies a coin, what happens when each coin all of a sudden becomes $1? What happens when each coin becomes $7? What happens when each coin becomes $700? You see, that's generational wealth, where all you did was invest in something. Right, that everybody else was telling you not to, but you try. And guess what? If you spent $50 and the Tron only remains where it is, and it's still $50, then the most you did was 50, right? XRP, other ones, things like that, right? And we teach classes on these things, right? Introductory classes to be able to teach to get people in this, right? To give you further knowledge outside of this on Zoom. And we teach these things. Why? Because you've got to start understanding that we have to get ourselves in a better position. We're out here trying to listen and say, man, just be like white people. Do what white people tell us to do. And I'm not saying all white people are evil. I'm trying to tell you, you don't have anything culturally that's yours. Shalom, angelic discipline, right? We don't have anything culturally that's ours. And thanks, babe, for being on. My wife, the Honorable Maya, is on. You can check her out at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website. I'm sorry, Peter said, do you think it's a blessing to go through hardship for being black? I see it as a lesson most people won't go through and makes you stronger. I believe that it's a great thing to go through any hardship. At the end of the day, I also believe that we shouldn't go through a hardship without making sure that there's a reward, right? Like, I believe that the reward shouldn't, our only reward, and I agree with you, Peter. I hope this doesn't come across as I'm coming against you. I agree wholeheartedly that there's a lot of stuff that black people have been through that other people can't handle. That's why when you hear people, I don't even like this term we use because Karen's supposed to mean grace, but when people say Karen or Becky or something like that, a lot of them flip out because all of a sudden they get treated in a manner that they're not used to. So first thing they do is they scream, they yell, because they're not used to somebody holding them accountable or not just listening to them whenever they cry or they act out, right? Black people are usually used to being ignored. So we're stronger in that regard. But here's the deal. We're stronger, but we're still being in debt. And to be in debt is to be a slave, right? So if we're still in debt and still, therefore, slaves, then being a stronger slave is not a solution. If we're going to break free, you got to be stronger to be able to make sure that you break out. NFT games. Yeah, I need to get into that. I'm going to have more time starting like the week of November 8th, that Monday. I'll finally have time to be traveling and have time to kind of sift through things and actually have free time again. I've been so busy since June, the end of June, that I haven't even been able to even look into a lot of stuff that I was doing. So, I actually have free time again, free time with family. That'll be beautiful. Free time to myself. That'll be beautiful. Free time to study even more instead of always being on the go. But that's something I definitely like to be able to get into. But once again, kind of getting back before I get completely off the subject, and I got to take my leave soon to get ready for our marriage class. Let us not forget that so many of us are out here doing what? We are trying our best to make sure that we live outside of our culture. Thank you, C Cloud. Oh, hey, what's up? How you doing, Cloud? We're trying our best to live outside of our culture. We have to set a standard and have an environment where that standard can be there. A lot of marriages are not going to work if you're trying to have a marriage for a specific type of community with a specific type of culture, with a specific type of background, with a specific DNA memory, and there's nothing to represent it. Of course, we're going to have a hard time. And the weird thing is, once we get away from each other, right? Once we stop fighting each other, once you see these people break up, black fathers, percentage-wise in the United States of America, are the most involved in their parents' lives. That's not a black statistic. That's according to white people who study you all day long. You don't study yourself, but they study us, right? And they'll tell you, black fathers, by percent, they're the most involved, whether they're married or not, whether they're living with the mom or not, whether they're living with the child or not full-time. They're the most involved in their children's lives out of everybody. But what would you hear? You'll hear black men talking about, man, black men need to be better fathers. Well, yes, all fathers need to be better fathers. Why is it black fathers? If you're holding it as far as statistics, then we're the best fathers in the world. While we're getting beat up, while we're getting arrested for being black, while we're getting getting arrested for DWB, right? Still being the best fathers. right? Problem is, though, what happens? What would think about that? If we're the best fathers now through this, what if we had our own environment, own culture, own land, and we did this? Watch this, where we became the best husbands as well. What if we married the two together? What if you couldn't think of us without thinking of our woman? And what if the woman, who is this dedicated mother, who's willing to go back for men that they say are garbage and dogs and all this, well, what if she became the best wife? And you couldn't separate the black woman from the black man, as far as every time I see a black woman, I'm looking for her husband. Every time I see a black man, I'm not saying you're trash without a husband or wife. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that what if we made our own standard and we didn't worry about if somebody else said? What we didn't worry about if somebody said, oh, black men are not great fathers. Well, in our community, when I see a black man, I automatically look for his woman. I don't care what other people say outside. When I see a black man, I'm always thinking, like, who's his woman? Right? How he treats his woman. See, you gotta manipulate the system back. They manipulated where you forgot it, so you gotta re-manipulate it, so to speak. I don't even know if such a term exists, but we gotta start manipulating this thing for ourselves. We gotta start saying, okay, they said every time you see a black child, then they don't have a black father. Well, how about this? Every time that I see a black man out there, I'm looking for his woman. You know why? Because I'm gonna start judging him according to the way he treats his woman. That's the standard. That's our standard. So if he treats his wife like a queen, then that's a good man. Every time I see a black woman, I'm gonna see how she treats her man, right? And every time that I see her, I'd be thinking, who is her man? Where's her man at? Because if I see her man and I see that she lifts him up and esteems him, and therefore because he feels so esteemed, he makes sure he lifts her up and makes her feel secure, then guess what? Every time that happens, that's how I'm going to judge them. I'm going to judge them as a family. And so when I see a child, I'm going to always be looking for the father and the mother. And guess what? If I don't see a father and the mother, if the mother's missing or if the father's missing, then guess what? I'm going to help to pick up the pieces. Right? Like some of the stuff we have coming up soon, we're going to be serious about it. We're going to be diligent about it. We want to have this stuff going on before we get to the land. We got to have this mindset together. We have to have it where people are coming together. Our children need to see each other now. I mean, we got too much technology for them not to see each other. They can talk to each other now. They can watch each other on YouTube now. Right? We can come together once a month, once every few months now. We don't have to keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Right? This is stuff that can happen right now. The standard can change right now. When I see you on here, hey, how's your wife doing? Hey, how's your husband? If you don't have a husband or wife, fine, you're married to your hubba. How's your relationship with him? Are you qualified? Let me ask you some questions while you're still single. See if you're qualified as a wife. See if you're qualified already as a husband, even if you're not married. Like, what are you dedicated to? You change the standard. The standard doesn't have to be what somebody else told you it was. The standard can be what you decided it would be. And we can decide something different. But it doesn't have to be the stand. Right now, our standard, at least what we're allowing people to think, is that our standard has to be black man's fault, black woman's fault. The time for that's over. At the end of the day, who cares whose fault it is at this point? I mean, we need to see what people did wrong, but who cares whose fault it is at this point? At this point, the standard needs to be growth. The standard needs to be consistency. The standard needs to be love. The standard needs to be praise. That's the standard. Vision, purpose, value, right? And that's the standard. And that's why I say to people, our standard doesn't have to be your standard. And there are going to be people who are going to drop off. I'm going to tell you right now, there are going to be people who've been loving and kind and all this stuff and will drop off. You know why they'll drop off? They'll drop off because they're like, the standard is going to get more tight. As we get closer to the community, we have to tighten up. And as you tighten up, some people don't want to be tightened up, or some people don't want accountability. Or some people are only going to want it if they can be in control, if they can have the place of accountability. You have to teach what I wanted. You have to do what I wanted to do. You have to do what I want you to do with it. Okay. Well, you don't have to be part. Right? So it gets to a place where you've got to be ready for it. But the standard must get The standard is higher, and every time you think you're getting closer to the standard, understand the standard is eternal. It keeps on going higher and higher and higher. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for when you call me up, man, you know, my wife's not doing blah, blah. What you doing, bro? That's the standard, right? I'm not here to talk about whose blame is what. What are you doing together? You know, I'd rather get calls where husband and wives were against me rather than they be against each other. Like at least y'all are together, community-wise, and teaching your babies to come together as one. But when you calling me, each person that's part of this couple calling me to say who is more at fault. So that is what it is. At the end of the day, it's time for me to take my leave, though. I'm done with the black on black crime. I'm done with blaming the black woman. I'm done with blaming the black man. I'm done with entertaining the blame. I'll leave that to the experts at entertaining blame. I'm going to get ready for our marriage class, which will be coming up soon. Thank you all for listening again. This will be our platform, this version of our platform that we have, which is basically the same thing, except right now we're shunned from our normal usage of TikTok, which is fine. I thank you. I appreciate you guys for coming on. We'll have all this stuff still on YouTube. We're still on the podcast. We thank you for those who reached out today and made some time with us. Keep each other in prayer. Love one another. If you want more information on many different things that we're doing around the world, or things we've even talked about, or some of the ideas we've talked about, we will make it a point to have conversation with you later on. So we're thankful. We're grateful. We appreciate the king and queen in each and every one of you. Even if you're not living inside that kingdom or queendom yet, we appreciate the potential king and queen in each and every one of you. There might have been something planted tonight. Maybe something was watered that was already planted, but Yahweh's coming, and he shall give the increase. We thank you so much for being on. And our prayer is not that you not only be hearers of this word, but doers as well. Please, once again, follow my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can follow her at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. And you can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website. Thank you, everybody, for being on. We appreciate you all. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, a.k.a. the Shadow Band One, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice to the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, we shall be the reason this world changes for the better. Bare minimum will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family.